Today it is my sad duty to discuss an incident over the weekend where a Wichita police officer used deadly force to stop a subject after a series of criminal events. We're handing out two documents for you to review. One is a sheet summary of the event, including the name of the deceased person and his information. And secondly, a map of the general area where the final stages of this situation occurred. It took place over several blocks, but you have a map of where it culminated. As is usual in a major case such as this, where the event happened not even 48 hours ago, I will be limited on the amount of detail that I can provide you this morning. There may be some questions I cannot answer or do not know the answers to. Over the course of time, this case will be fully investigated for as many days as it takes, and the final case will be delivered and presented to the District Attorney of Sedgwick County, who will ultimately make the final decision with all facts present regarding the justification of the officer's actions. Here are the facts of the events that transpired Saturday night as we know them today. At 11:56 p.m. on Saturday night, officers were dispatched to a shots fired call, a possible drive-by shooting in the 46th and Charles area. It's in South Wichita. At the time that this call is dispatched, a description of a white vehicle describing it as the vehicle where the shots came from is also broadcast. We have a Wichita police officer in a marked vehicle, fully uniformed, who responds to this call and rolls into the area right about midnight, 4 minutes later. He sees a vehicle coming out of that neighborhood that is a white vehicle and somewhat matches the description of what dispatch has given him. As the vehicle, he is driving eastbound on 45th Street. The vehicle is driving westbound on 45th Street. They're going to pass each other. He looks into the vehicle, sees several occupants, and decides it is suspicious enough he will turn around and investigate. As he does this, the vehicle immediately begins to accelerate, proceeding west on 45th. The officer watches the vehicle, tries to catch up, and sees the vehicle at a high rate of speed run the stop sign at 45th and Meridian and head northbound on Meridian Street. At this time, the officer turns on red lights and siren, and we have about a 7-minute police pursuit in South Wichita through the neighborhoods as it is clear to the officer that the suspect driving the vehicle is trying to lose him. This vehicle chase culminates at 35th and Everett, which is on your map that we provided to you. And at this point, two things happen at the same time. We have multiple people exiting the vehicle and running in different directions. The initial officer who spotted the vehicle is still the officer behind the car, and he is the only officer that is in the proximity at the time. So he chooses one of the people to run after, and it is Mr. Lanning, who is our deceased in this matter. At that same time, while that foot chase is starting, other suspects are fleeing into the neighborhood, and we have a number of officers that are beginning to converge on this area. And we are cordoning off an area to do a search. That's happening at the same time. The officer who initiates the chase chases Lanning north from the vehicle stop into the neighborhoods. Lanning jumps a large privacy fence, and the officer follows using caution. In the backyard, after Lanning jumps that fence, there is a confrontation. He stops running, and the officer all through this foot chase is yelling at him to stop, and it is clear he is a police officer. He is fully uniformed. Lanning has in his possession a small bag that he continues to furtively manipulate that the officer can clearly see. At one time placing his hand into the bag, despite the fact that the officer gives numerous requests that he not do that. At one point, the officer turns with that bag in his hand at chest level and is moving toward the officer with the bag. And at that time, the officer feels enough jeopardy that he fires rounds from his handgun, striking Lanning several times. Lanning is taken to the hospital via Christie and is pronounced deceased after that. While this is happening, other officers are coming to that scene. We run a massive grid search of about 8 to 10 square blocks. We have Sedgwick County K-9, Kansas Highway Patrol K-9, and WPD K-9 all on the scene. And we literally lock this neighborhood down for about 2 hours while we search for these other remaining suspects. We do take another individual into custody and bring him upstairs for questioning, and we ultimately booked him. The vehicle that was stopped, the white vehicle that initially was in the chase, was full of burglary, fruits of crime. There was a flat screen TV and some video devices in there, which we had confirmed were taken in a burglary from the 2600 block of Newell about an hour before this car chase started. In follow-up of the investigation, we searched the vehicle and the bag that Mr. Lanning had. None of them had a handgun or any kind of weapon in it. The suspect who was booked was charged with possession of drugs and other ancillary charges. Mr. Lanning, whenever something happens like this, we always wonder why people do what they do. Mr. Lanning is an absconder, or was an absconder, from the Kansas Department of Corrections. He had an active county warrant as well, which may explain why he ran from police. We are investigating still at this time. I'll try to answer whatever questions I can, keeping in mind that we're limited at this time of what we can answer.
What was in the bag?
Personal items for Mr. Lanning. I'd rather not go into the detail of what that is.
Was Lanning the driver of the car?
We do not know. The officer was behind the vehicle, cannot confirm that he was the driver. We can confirm he was in the vehicle because the officer saw him exit, but we are unclear whether he is the driver or a passenger.
How many shots were fired by
Multiple.
the officer? Specifically.
I can't say.
And Chief, can you describe that bag when you talk? Is it just like a little?
It's a bag that has a tie top to it, like you see a lot of people carry, probably a foot long and several inches wide. It has a black tie strings on the top.
And he actually like pointed it toward. It looked as if toward the officer.
That is correct. That is what the officer saw.
And do you know how many people were in that car? You said multiple people were in it.
We have witnesses that we talked to who live in that area. It's a residential area immediately to the north, as you can see. Witnesses saw 4 people leave the vehicle.
All male?
3 male, 1 female.
Documented gang members?
The individual that we brought up that we apprehended after the event is a documented gang member. Mr. Lanning is not.
And was there a shot fired from that car? Do you
No,
know?
not that we can prove.
So it was a different. It came from somewhere else. The shot did it, as far as you know.
Apparently so.
But when the person called in and said there'd been a shot fired, they gave a description of a white car.
That is correct.
And that's why he became suspicious.
Yes, that is the information that the officer was using to make the decisions that he did.
So at this point, you're not sure whether this vehicle was involved in the reported drive-by then, huh?
That is correct.
And had there been a number of home burglaries in that area recently?
No, not on Newell that we could prove this was an isolated burglary. One thing I forgot to mention, as the officer initiates the chase, he had run the tag of the car. Actually, dispatch ran it for him, and it was a stolen tag. During the follow-up investigation, we have determined that the vehicle was stolen from a local car distributor here in Wichita, but we did not know that at the time of this incident.
But
So we had
when
to
you did
pass-
run the tag, it showed it was a stolen
That is
vehicle?
correct. The officer did that.
It was a stolen tag.
Stolen tag.
Oh, the tag was stolen.
That's correct. Through follow-up investigation, we determined that the vehicle itself was stolen.
Okay.
But initially, it was just reported as a stolen tag.
That's correct. The tag did not belong to that car.
And Chief, did any other witnesses or officers witness the shooting, the actual incident?
No. We have a homeowner that lived in the area. He observed the confrontation between the officer and the suspect, but shut his door and hid during the time of the shots fired. He did not see the shooting.
And it happened in the backyard?
That is correct.
Okay. How long has the officer been on the board?
A 9-year veteran. And as is typical in these cases, we call in Kansas Bureau of Investigation. They had an investigator on site along with my investigators. And the officer is on administrative process right now.
Chief, we always ask this, I don't know if you can answer it, but do you feel like he did the right thing? He followed procedure?
All we can expect from our officers on the street is reasonable behavior. In this case, it's nighttime. He is dispatched to a shots fired, drive-by shooting, and I think a reasonable person would expect that they would have to confront a weapon in that kind of call. The vehicle ran from the officer. That's not reasonable. And it was a lengthy, they were clearly trying to get away. 7-minute car chase, that's lengthy for our car chases. At the time that they wrecked the vehicle and actually drove over a curb, disabling one of the wheels, they could have given up. They did not. They all ran. That's not reasonable. The officer ran after a suspect, was constantly giving verbal commands to stop. When he began to see the furtive movement in the bag, he gave many verbal commands to stop that activity. So we would want our officer to do what a reasonable person would do. And on first blush, as we look at some of these aggravating circumstances, it appears policy was followed. The officer was doing what he was supposed to do in an area he was supposed to be in, doing his job that he was sent to do. The district attorney will make the final decision of the justification and validity of the shooting. But on the front value, on the front end of this investigation, it appears that we have policy followed and procedures followed.
And remind me, is this the first officer involved shooting this year?
We had one a couple weeks ago in Old Town.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Was Landing a gang member?
No, we do not have him as a documented gang.
Just the other arrest.
Just another person from that vehicle.
So that's 2 officers involved fatal shootings, because we had the woman that was shot in West Wichita as well. Where's that last year?
An officer involved? I know this is the second one of the month. If we want historical data before that, I'll have to do some research.
That was in January.